You are now listening to EdYOUcate, the most fired up educational podcast there is. EdYOUcate is all about the quality education access to students and how we can provide research-based solutions to free the young minds of the world. On this podcast, we will be exploring different educational experiences, education's greatest of debates, and more. The hottest educational podcast out. EdYOUcate is brought to you from the Albany State University's very own Center for Educational Opportunity. Enjoy.
On today's episode, we will be discussing passionate parents and mentorship for high school students. We have our special guest on here today, Toya Algarin. If you would like to introduce yourself to the listeners and just explain to them what you do and who you are.
Hello, my name is Toya Algarin, and I'm a parent of 3. And through them growing up, my oldest are 30. And through them growing up, I was forced into this educational platform by default, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, so I am a parent activist. I also am the Chief Marketing Officer for Jane Inc. I also am a part of several parent organizations here in Philadelphia, one being Philadelphia Parents Coalition. And I also am a big fan of the 8 Black Hands, which are Black males, and I run their book club. So yeah, that's me.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. That's interesting. So yeah. I guess I will start off by asking you, what do you think is the importance of parents' engagement?
Well, for me, parent engagement means everything, right? So it's studies and surveys out there that says that if parents are involved in their child's education, the child is likely to do better. They're more likely to graduate. They're more likely to move on to college, and they're more likely to be successful. So parent engagement is most important to me for those reasons. And I was going to say, as a parent, right, of 3, and my oldest being in their 30s and my youngest being 23, I've done it really good and I've done it really bad, and I'm out here today trying to help parents or save parents from doing it really bad and show them what it looks like to do it really well.
Okay, so I'm sure that a lot of people have heard, or even a lot of parents have heard, the stigma on Black parents don't really want to get engaged in their child's education, or they don't really want to be there involved in their child's activities. I just want to know, what's your viewpoint on specifically the stigma of Black parents not wanting to be engaged?
First of all, what I would like to know is who created that stigma and why is that stigma there, right? Most times parents want to be involved, right? But schools don't meet parents where they are. So if they're having a meeting at 9:00 in the morning, how many parents can attend that meeting? If they're having a meeting at 5:00 in the afternoon, when parents are just getting off of work, they got to go home and feed their children. They got to go home and take care of their household. How are they going to be involved in parent engagement at any cost, right? The other stigma is sometimes parents have trauma at that same school, or they had trauma in their life at a school where they don't feel comfortable going in, to be involved. Right. So you got to look at that portion, too. The other thing is, how are parents being welcomed when they get into the school? Are teachers talking down to them? Are they down to them, meaning using highfalutin words that some parents don't understand? And their parents become disconnected because they don't understand teacher language. So are teachers talking at parents or with parents? OK, and yeah. That's 3 things right there that I could think of about parent stigma, not wanting to be involved in parent engagement.
Yes, that's very powerful. So I like how you mentioned the relationship or the aspect of teachers and parents. So how do you think we can build a healthy teacher-parent partnership to where it isn't a teacher talking at a parent with all their certifications and qualifications?
Well, I would say, okay, Jamila. I've been a bad girl. Okay. Several times. Okay. So actually, I'm on the board of a school. I didn't even say that. I'm on the board of KIPP Philadelphia schools here in Philadelphia. And I am a grandma, right? So I run a crochet club at the school. So all the teachers know me, first of all, right? So it's a funny story, so I'm just going to tell it. So everybody knows me. And one of the teachers there, she partners with me to get all my supplies or whatever I need. So one summer I was in the school and it was, walking around trying to find out where my classroom was going to be to teach the kids and all that good stuff. And she was like, they call me Gigi in school. She was like, Gigi, we're having our PD right now. Come up and meet the teachers. I'm like, okay. So I go up and meet the teachers. And what we did from there was I told the teachers what was expected of the teachers from the parents' point of view, right? So I think that, back to your question, one of the most important things that schools and parents could do is have a meeting at the beginning of the school year and talk about what the expectations look like from a child, from a parent, and from the student. Okay. And just meet on a common ground. All right. For instance, parents can tell teachers, please don't just call me when my child is doing bad. Call me when my child is doing something good. Please, realize, teachers, that you're not out here as a savior. Okay. You're out here to bring my child resources and teach my child something that they don't already know. Don't teach my child from a deficit. My child is already smart and understands his culture. He is already a brilliant student. Teach my child where they are. And don't be afraid to challenge my child. Okay, challenge him, or her. So it's a lot of things that it's like these communications and the same goes for teachers. Like teachers can, I expect your child to do the homework every night. And if they can't, please let me know, like if there's a personal issue at home, somebody has COVID, somebody may have passed away, there may be a divorce, communicate that with the teacher. You don't have to go into details, but just say, there's some personal trauma going on in my household. My child may be acting a little differently. So these are the things that, parents and teachers need to get together and also bring in the student, because the student has a certain, he has a responsibility in this relationship as well. At KIPP, we call it the three-legged stool. Okay. Everybody has a responsibility. It's the parent, the teacher, and the student.
Wow. I love that you have experience on both ends, that you can be a parent advocate, but you also know what the students need. You also know what parents need and what teachers need. That's just a well-rounded perspective. So I wanted to ask you, how do you think that we can build a pipeline for Black professionals, specifically lawyers, to be people that can stand in the gap for those students as well, and for teachers, and, just making sure that we have Black professionals to set an example for the youth?
So this goes to segment 3, but we're just going to wrap it all and put it all together. Okay. So I'm also, as I said, I'm the chief marketing officer at Jane Inc. And Jane Inc. is doing exactly what we're trying to build, a pipeline of professionals, and professionals starting with lawyers. Okay. So the funny thing is, my CEO, her name is Samantha Wilson Jones. And Samantha Wilson Jones is a lawyer now. And she wanted to become a lawyer when she saw Claire Huxtable. And ever since then, she went and she tried her best to be a lawyer, and she is. But anyway, that was her dreams and aspirations. But as she started to navigate that, it was very difficult for her. Okay. Because she didn't have anyone at home who represented a lawyer, who was a lawyer. So she didn't know what that looked like. She didn't know what that looked like as far as going to school, what courses to take, the whole gambit. So what she decided to do now, what she does now, she started a company called Jane Inc. that mentors children so that they could navigate the professional world, which is phenomenal. So that pipeline and what that looks like, she has a mentorship program. The mentorship program she has like 3 segments, but the one I'm going to talk about is the mentorship program. And it's like 6 sessions. We pick students and we mentor them. We show them how to, what it looks like to develop your brand, how to navigate being in a professional world, what it looks like to write a resume, what your resume should look like, and all these different competencies to be a lawyer. It's really good. It's actually a really good program. And the one thing you got to remember, I mean, it's so much going out here. It's so much going on out here where, Jamila, where like right now in schools, we are so focused on children who have lost because of COVID, right? Lost learning and all that good stuff. So everybody's focused on the children who have, who have potentially lost the last year. But what are we doing for the students who didn't lose and are still high performers? And that's where Jane comes in. You know what I mean? We gather those students, and what we try to do is help them navigate their career and what that looks like to be successful. That's how we put together a pipeline of, you said lawyers, but it could be a lawyer, it could be any kind of professional out there. Finance, law, fashion, or whatever that looks like. And what we do is we try to find scholars or professionals in that field, and they come out and they teach these mentor sessions, and they teach our child. And that way, the child can see someone they aspire to be. You know what I mean? And that's very important. It's very important.
It is most definitely. And I'm so glad you clarified that it's Black professionals, like just different type of professions. It's not just lawyers. And I like that you said that, because one thing I always think about is how a lot of students, specifically Black students, may not choose teaching as their first option. They may not, want to become a teacher, and it could be from their own personal experiences that they've, experienced in school with having a bad teacher, or just not feeling the support, or just not liking school in general. And going through this program, it's like it's helping or retraining them to have a desire for something, but separate, detach from the negative experiences or the negative aspects of it, and truly learn what it is to be a Black professional from other Black professionals. And I think it's very important for specifically Black students to see themselves in the classroom, to see themselves and see Black professions, because they know that they can and it's possible for them. And so I'm so glad that you clarified that it's for everyone. And even how you were talking about the learning loss, and what about the students that gained during the pandemic? I think that this program would help the ones that lost as well, because one thing about students, and just me being a student, we can adapt really well. We're able to adapt to different aspects, different environments, and it might be a struggle at first, but if you put your mind to it, you can adapt. And so even though they may have had a loss, this program could jump them, catapult them to a level where they probably wouldn't have been if they just relied on math, social studies, science, readings. Like sometimes you need learning outside of the school. And that's where a lot of learning comes from. It's not just coming from the subjects. I know I'm talking a lot. I'm sorry. No.
That key point is with everything that's going on in the world, I'm not bringing up CRT to talk about it, because I am no way near a professional person that could speak on it at all. I know that CRT is like a framework so that we can identify like the systemic issues that are in school. No way do teachers talk CRT. They don't teach that in schools. It's just a framework to identify these problems that are existing in schools. So I think it's just really important that we realize that parents, teachers, we're here to like educate the student to help them aspire to be what they want to be. Some of this stuff happens at home. A lot of it happens outside of the classroom, totally outside of the classroom. Like, for instance, me having the crochet ministry, I totally exposed my children to a whole different world, an entirely different world. We went to basketball games, football games. We went to the flower show. Some of my girls never been to the flower show, not because they weren't smart. They're smart as a whip. They just never been to a flower show. You know what I mean? And I exposed them to entrepreneurship, and how to start your own crochet business. How do you do your side hustle when you're in college? Because in college, you got to eat, right? And you can't always call mommy, you know what I mean? But what you can do is take the yarn and the hook that Gigi gave you and make some hats and scarves and sell those, and what does that look like? How do you build a brand? So, and that's what Jane Inc. does. They take them out of their normal background and exposes them to something bigger than themselves, or something that not only bigger than themselves, that's something they might not have ever seen before. Mm-hmm. And then when you see it, you can be it. You know what I'm saying? When you see it, you can be it. And you said something to that. And when you said it, it just reminded me of my mom and girl, you're little old soul sitting in front of me. But my mom's 91. She said the same thing. This is like you're standing on like shoulders of elders, and that's great, Jamila. I'm just happy to sit here and talk to you. But yeah, go on, girl. I heard you.
That was good. I love the two things that, popped out that you had said was the exposure. And even like, if you see it, you can be it, because a lot of the times kids don't dream because they don't know, they can't see, there is no vision there. And so with the exposure, it's specifically, and the reason why I'm saying specifically, Black students, is because it's a common deficiency. It's a common achievement gap in that community. And so, if they don't get the exposure that their white counterparts gets, in suburban areas, or even rural areas that are just close knit with just, a Caucasian community, if they don't get that type of exposure, they will never know. They like you said, they will never go to flower shows. They will never be able to go to aquariums or zoos, as a field trip. They might never know any other animal outside of what they see on TV. And so it's just, that exposure is key. And the more that, these Black students are exposed to different things, the more their minds can expand to dream. And so I think that's one of the biggest important things about, Jane, is that it allows them to be able to dig deeper into parts of themselves that they don't really know that they have, or desires that they don't really know that they have. And so I'm so glad that you have brought that up, because, parents that are listening to this, and even teachers that, might want to have their, encourage their own students' parents to sign up for this, it'll be a really good start for them to start understanding, things that are bigger than themselves. And so I'm just glad you brought this up.
Hey, do we have a few more seconds? I see we're almost up to time, but a little bit more about Jane and building that pipeline. So Jane, the first portion of Jane, we have the first portion of Jane I told you about, how we work with high school students, and, we get them ready to think about college and think about professions and stuff like that. But we also have another portion of Jane, and what they do is they work with the college children like yourselves, and they get them ready to actually move into the professional environment. Okay, so we mentor them as well, because at that point, you starting to talking about negotiating, your salary, and we're talking about how you get your job, what your resume should really even more so look like now. And we try to make that transition between a college student into, profession seamless. So that's another portion that we have. But also when building that pipeline, this is the portion, reflecting Jane, is the portion that really excites me, because what we also do is we go into organizations, we go into institutions and corporations, And what we try to do is help you with your marketing, with your business strategy. And with that strategy, we try to incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion within that so that it makes sense. Because if you don't change these organizations, institutions, and corporations from the inside up, once you go in as a Black professional, you may not be supported. Okay, so what does that look like? What does that fair salary look like, right? What does mentorship within inside of the company look like? What does an institution like a college look like when they don't have enough Black professors, to teach the student? What does that pedagogy inside of the classroom look like? So we also help organizations, institutions, and corporations, we help them see what that, or develop that and see what that looks like. We help them infuse diversity within their strategy, their business strategies.
That's big. That's important. And I didn't even know that aspect. So I'm so glad that you had mentioned that, because just me knowing my peers and just me knowing that my career track and my pathway for my degree, that's something that I definitely would need to know, and my peers too, because sometimes you can, what's the word for it? Sometimes just like the lack of knowledge and the ignorance coming into a company or starting a job without knowing, any type of background information, or just being so grateful that you have a job coming out of college, but you don't know that you're shortcoming yourself, because you could be, valued at not so much to say you're valuable at a price, but at a higher pay. And I think that's really important, because some people are just, they want a job so bad, but it's more to that. And so knowing what you're worth, like how much your worth is as a human being in general, and what you come with, I think that's very important. So I'm definitely going to take a deeper dive into that, because that right there, that's helpful. And if I can help my peers, I definitely, will go ahead and spread that.
The other thing is, look, don't say ignorance. We want to take that word out, right? You know what we want to say? We don't know what we don't know.
Right.
We just don't know what we don't know. And that goes for parents about being involved in schools. They don't know what they don't know. You know what I mean? And us. And some of it might be due to lack of resources and disparities that are going on out in the world that affect Black and brown us people,
Yeah.
people, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, so yeah, we just don't know what we don't know. So, and what I'll do after the podcast, I'll definitely, send you the information, and then, yeah.
Thank you. And that is so true. We don't know what we don't know until we find out about it. Yeah. Until we know. Thank you so much for that. Well, I definitely thoroughly enjoyed this podcast interview. I just know that our listeners enjoyed it as well. You are a great parent advocate, and you're also a great help to the teachers that need the guidance and need the extra help from a different perspective as well. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today on this podcast.
You have just completed the most recent episode of the EdYOUcate podcast. Thank you for listening to the most fired up educational podcast out. Tune in every first Wednesday of each month at 5 p.m. during the 2021 through 2022 academic year.